Soldiers of Reddit, what is something you wish you had known before joining the military? First, save every scrap of paper that you receive. Make a binder that includes copies of all your orders, certificates, important documents, evaluation reports, medical information, etc. Have copies of everything. It seems like overkill, but paperwork goes missing all the time. Second, if you are sick, go to sick call. If you get paperwork from the doctor, keep a copy in your binder. If you get hurt, go to sick call. If it is severe, make sure you get line of duty paperwork. Each small injury might not seem like a big deal, but after a few years, they add up. You don't want to be 30 years old with the joints of a 60-year-old and no paperwork to back up your history. Third, if you need mental health treatment, go to mental health. Stop caring about what other people say. If you need help, go get it. Fourth, speak up for yourself. Be your own advocate. Not everyone has your best interest in mind. If you don't think something is right, voice your opinion professionally. Fifth, don't be afraid to volunteer for cool missions and opportunities. Being able to control some aspects of your career feels pretty awesome. Search around, go on forums, check opportunities, network, etc. Sixth, go to school. Actual school. Don't let the military convince you that University of Phoenix is your end goal. Do whatever you want to do, so you have skills when you leave the service. Use your GI Bill. Volunteer for nothing. Especially if they are looking for volunteers for a course that on the surface sounds amazing, but when you look around you are the only one with your hand up and suddenly you are cleaning some sheet for someone else. Recruiters lie. It's a numbers game to them. Iraq was about oil. If you are a skinny 10-stone 18-year-old expected up to carry 100 pounds of kit, your knees will feel like a 50-year-old's by the time you are 25. A uniform doesn't guarantee success with chicks. You aren't harder than a bouncer after 6 months training. You aren't an expert in all things military after a few months in the job, and you aren't a hero for simply volunteering to be in the military. Basically, be realistic about who and what you really are. It's the Navy and Air Force that get to see the world. In the Army we just get to clean it. There's plenty of time to join. I didn't really need to join at 18. I could have gone to uni, traveled, had positive experiences, and then joined to become bitter, twisted, jaded and disgruntled at the state of humanity. You matter to your friends and family, to your platoon and company, maybe to your battalion, but to the wider military you are a number. A tool to be used and discarded. The mission comes first and your piddliest problems come second. You become different. Your entire viewpoint on everything from sex to politics to morality to notions of comfort change drastically. You will come to despise certain character traits and types of people. Don't trust to everything your recruiter tells you. Look up info on your own and bounce questions off of them. I did and got stuck as a laundry specialist for 4 years. Oh, and color vision can affect the jobs you can get in the military. Edit. Let me give some more details on my story. I wanted to join the army, to do cool army shit. Plain and simple. I was a junior in high school when a recruiter called out of the blue and told me about the split option. The split option meant I could go to basic during the summer and come back and finish up high school. Only thing was that I had to join the reserves and pick a non-combat MOs. The recruiter told me I could change my whole contract after I got back from basic. That was the lie. So I signed up for any old MOs, which ended up being a 92S, shower, laundry, and clothing repair specialist. So I go off to Futsal for the summer. When I got back I went back to the recruiter station. My original recruiter moved on to his next duty station, and when I asked about changing my contract I was told I had to wait until I was 18. A few months go by, I'm an adult, I go back, rules change, I have to wait 2 years. So I go to 8 and become a 92S and report to my unit. I ask about changing my MOs and get no help from the sheetbag full-timers. So I was stuck as a Stitch Beach for 4 years until a sister unit let me join them and reclass to deploy with them. Now as for color vision, I found out I was red-green color blind when I went through MEPS and thought nothing of it. Mistake on my part. I learned later that due to my color blindness, I was unable to do all that cool army shit that I originally wanted to do. So no combat MOs, no specialty schools, no faking nothing. I never did a single faking thing I wanted to do in the army. It ended up being a big waste of time. I'm going to stop typing because I'm making myself angry. Just do me a favor. If you're considering joining the military, remember my mistakes and don't get faked/fuck yourself over. If you're offered a special school, take it. Especially if you are just coming out of 8. My biggest regret is that at the end of 8 a couple NCOs came into our living area and said we've got 10 slots for airborne and air assault. If you want one, the other, or both raise your hand now and you'll be on the list. Told myself at the time that I'd go later when I was in better shape or whatever I told myself. I fucking hate myself because ever since then it's either been the unit doesn't have money for it or I procrastinated any chances away. Don't do that to yourself. Keep your training environment mentality and get the schools done while you still have that mentality, because once you're out of that mentality, it's damn hard to get or want to be back in it. Save all paperwork. Save your goddamn money. Do not go out and buy a new car. Do not faking do it. You're not special. The car salesman is going to fuck you over just like everyone before you. Save your first couple paychecks, get a beta, and save the shit out of your money. I've seen guys save for 4 years and have enough to buy their dream car in cash. Watched an E5 buy the new Corvette Stingray as soon as it hit the market with cash. He told us all that he had been saving for the past 5 years. It's not about cars though. It's about your future. Eventually you won't be army anymore. You gonna be like some of us dumbasses and be in debt looking for whatever job you can get just to make ends meet. Go to school, fuck what anyone tells you. Go get signed up for classes. Do online. Don't bother with classroom, as mission will dictate whether you get to make it to that class. Try telling 1SG you can't go to the field because you got class. So take as many online courses as you can. Shoot for a degree of any kind, preferably one you want. You'll be leagues ahead of everyone else. Finally, get seen for anything medical. Keep the paperwork. I don't think this would have changed my decision much on joining, but I wish I knew how easy it is to get into the military. I'm Air Force, so of course boot camp easier. What I mean is the part of taking the ASVAB, choosing a job, and in some cases gaining rank. I might be wrong, but it seems to be easier to join Army or Marines. Yes, I know the boot camp bit harder, but I'm sure everyone from any branch can support me on how certain people can make it through. This is what concerns me. But imagine talking to someone higher ranking than you and trying to convince them that they are wrong, and they literally are, and they won't budge. Not from being an asshole or having a huge ego, but from really thinking they are right because they have simply been in a certain time or made rank fast. There are people who seem, to me, that are borderline retarded and are in charge of things. Others have absolutely no people skills and refuse to help you when that is what their job entails. I hope you all can understand what I'm trying to say. I'm not too good at putting it in writing. I fix F-16s, and in the Air Force, maintenance is what people usually get into as enlisted. I'm considered the friendly guy everywhere I go. I don't use my rank as an NCO the way the military wants me to do it. I ask people to do things, not tell them. It's not supposed to be that way, and I fully agree with doing what you are told. I also believe in keeping your mouth shut. Hard work is hard work. I respect the rank, but that can only go so far when the actual individual is a moron. I treat people like adults, whether they are new or my boss. Edit. I respect people that are in the military. I still look at myself as just a mechanic. I've been to Iraq and Afghanistan, but I don't consider myself a veteran. I don't see the Air Force as the easier branch, just the one that you get treated as an adult the most. Understand that while many people who choose to serve might be doing it as an act of patriotism, most are not. A lot of people who end up in the military usually have no way out of a crappy situation. It is arguably a professional welfare system. Understand they will sell you buzzwords like honor, loyalty, and integrity, while many of the people who are grilling you about these principles do not practice them themselves. It is one of the few professions in the world where people with no education can rise through ranks and make your life hell just cause Understand that the organization you joined sole purpose in life is to exert/enforce the political will of the US government on whomever. Understand that they can give a lesser fuck about you, or your family or your situation. You are a service member before you are a parent or a spouse. Realize that a lot, depending on your branch of service, of your time will be spent in classes being told things like don't rap people, please don't kill yourself, or let someone else kill themselves over and over and over and over again. As Americans we are culturally desensitized to violence, but when you go to work every day and see all the awful things that don't even make the news, it really takes its toll on you. I wish I was informed just how difficult the loneliness would be. Yeah, it starts off all fun and games, you mess around, party when you can, but then you meet the love of your life. If they are wearing a uniform you can pretty much kiss it goodbye. If they're in a separate branch it's damn near impossible. All those people you just spent the last few years bonding with, getting close to, they're gone PCSing. The one thing you are never prepared for is the first time you lose a friend to a war you do not agree with, but you are stuck in due to poor life choices and difficult circumstances. Especially when you watch as the host country doesn't even fight for what your friends sacrificed their lives for. That is the most sickening part of it for me personally. Also, if you plan on only enlisting/commissioning for a short time, then do not have children. That is the scare tactic. That is how they get into your head to keep you. The military can be a good stepping stone. You meet people and can have some good experiences, but it is largely dependent on the people. Your relationship with the military can be like an abusive relationship. They will sweet talk you at first, but once it has you, it will beat you. It will tell you are nothing, and when you start to get the courage to separate, it will tell it gets better, dangle presents in front of you, and once they have you again, they go back to beating you until you say fuck it, I'm halfway to retirement. Sorry, I didn't mean to make this so long/depressing. Also join the damn Air Force, but be patient. AF recruiters are usually lazy cause they make quota easy. From I have seen they have the best quality of life. Those first few weeks away from your family for the first time can be a lot rougher than you think. The first time real homesickness hits you, you'll question your decision to join. But you stick it out, and that passes. There are college courses available on most military bases. Take advantage of as many of them as you can, especially general ed stuff that will be transferable to a university when you get out. I cannot stress this next thing enough. Stay away from credit cards. If you don't have the money to spend, don't spend it. Watch your finances and take them very seriously. Don't buy a car if you can't afford the monthly payment. Don't get anyone pregnant. Wrap your sheet up every time. Gonorrhea sucks, so I've heard. Find a hobby that doesn't involve drinking. Play guitar, become a computer geek, learn to sew, whatever. Just find something to fill your downtime, or you'll end up an alcoholic faster than you'd think. If you're married, or if you get married while you're in the military, don't forget about or neglect your spouse. If they're civilian, there isn't much for them to do. If it's a remote posting, there might not be any place for them to find a job. You're not the only one who is sacrificing, so are they. Being left at home all day in a place where you don't know anyone isn't very fun. Take your job seriously, whatever it is. Don't end up as a reputation of being that guy, the one everyone jokes about when he's not around, the one everyone hopes doesn't end up on their shift. Because all he does is figure out how to get through the shift while doing as little work as possible. Embrace your job, whatever it is. It's probably the only one you'll have for the next few years, so you might as well learn to be good at it. I could probably think of a few more, but I gotta go. Former Marine. Cleaning. You are always cleaning something. Your rifle, your room, your work area. No matter how good you clean, you will fail. There is nothing you can do about it. Inspections. Uniform inspections, rifle inspections, wall locker inspections. If the assistant undersecretary of the Department of Useless Thing might come within 50 miles of the base, prepare for inspections. The anxiety the above causes on a daily basis. Mr. Spot Shaving, you're faked. Instant heart attack when you can't remember if you locked your wall locker or not. It took me at least 2 years after I got out to get over it. Being boot. Don't think that after you graduate boot camp your unit will welcome you with open arms. No, you are a boot. You don't know shit. Anything you say will be scoffed at. Every story you tell will be derided. And for the sweet love of Christ, do not talk like your drill instructor. You will literally be a boot for years. Get used to the idea. Friends. You will make the best friends you have ever had and will have. Careful though, some of them may fuck your wife or girlfriend. Marriage. Don't do it. In the military, on a long enough time scale, everyone will eventually get a divorce. And if you somehow make it though, when you get out your wife may not be able to adapt to the man who used to get so much respect just walking around on base to you just becoming a normal Joe. If you are a bossy now and non-confrontational, that will change, or you will end up not making it. You will be friendless. Accountability. If something is faked up, someone is faked. Officers, I'm looking at you. You poor bastards. 3 dumbasses get DUIs this weekend. Your fault. Some dipshit punches a cop off base. Your fault. Your destiny, career, and future in the USMC can be completely ruined by a couple of 18 to 21-year-olds away from home for the first time in their lives. There are some incredibly stupid Marines out there. Stupid in every sense of the word. No street smarts, no book smarts. You will wonder how they even made it this far. There will also be some incredibly intelligent Marines out there. I don't just mean they are bright or well educated. I mean some Stephen Hawking level shit. Humps. This is my personal hell. I have been hiking before. I hiked part of the Appalachian Trail for 2 weeks. But humps destroyed me. Maybe because I'm not tall, but staying in line and the slinky effect that has. Walk fast, now run. Walk fast, now run for 12 miles. I can and have run 15 miles, and that was easier than having moving for 10 miles. Don't join the Navy. That was what I learned being on ship. In the Marines you pick up corporal, E4, and life becomes easier. In the Navy I saw E6s doing sheet work that I would have reserved for boots. Language. Not just the enormous amount of profanity and expletives, but the naval speak and other words only used in the military. The way they talk and Generation Kill is pretty much right on, but we never said stay frosty when I was in. And nobody ate charms ever. I could go on forever. If you a specific question, PM me. I guess I should also say I would do it again. The Marines made me a better person. I don't get stressed out the way others do about deadlines and changes in work schedule. I know how to lead and not just manage. Semper Fiat but Zedit formatting. Do not under any circumstances listen to a recruiter. They are entirely full of shit and only care about numbers. Research your job fully and if possible get into contact with a person with your prospective MOs so you can get an idea of what you'll actually be doing in the military. Do not believe the horse sheet video of hua sheet they show you in the recruiter's office. You will work with absolute idiots. Most of your leadership will be worse than absolute idiots. Learn to deal with these people in whatever way works best for you. You aren't fighting for a cause. You are fighting for the woe/man next to you, because we certainly aren't defending anybody's freedom. There is a massive amount of waste. Wasted equipment, wasted money, wasted food, and wasted time. Half of the reason I left. Most of your job will be cleaning. From E1 to E8 you will be cleaning some shit that somebody with a high rank didn't want to clean. No exceptions. Your firearms training will largely be you being handed a rifle once a year, told to qualify, and then cancelled once you don't qualify, even though you haven't picked up a weapon in forever, unless you're deploying, or are infantry or the like. You will be punished for shit that had nothing to do with you. Whether it was the idiot leadership who faked up by not ordering enough food, or having enough pro masks, or the faker who accused somebody of rapping her at your birthday party on post, wasn't true. The guy was found not guilty, had to go through 2 years of court trials for false allegations. If you're planning on going into the army or marines, be prepared to be treated subhuman. You have given up your rights as an American citizen to become a soldier. You aren't entitled to the same rights as normal citizens once you are in. You are essentially an indentured servant. No right to speedy trial. You can be tortured, put to death for seemingly idiotic rules such as adultery, etc. Save all of your paperwork. No matter how silly it may seem. It will save you as one day, when somebody loses your paperwork, that shows all of the schools you've gone to, and you're somehow faked out of all the awards and skill identifiers you've worked hard to earn. Stay away from sheet bags. They will ruin your military career and your life. Find people who aspire to better themselves every day, and latch yourself onto them. Take full advantage of all of the benefits the military offers you. There will be people who try to give you shit about using the benefits you're entitled to, fact them, and don't give any facts about what they say. They put those programs in place because it was necessary to give the soldiers some kind of compensation for the shitiness they've dealt with. The military has paid for a significant portion of my education, and many people tried to get in the way of me using my tuition assistance or my loan repayment because they thought I was asking too much of the military. If it was in your contract, then you should use it. Furthermore, if you are mainly joining the military for the educational benefits, join the National Guard. They get tuition waivers, whereas the reserves only gets reimbursement. The difference is with a waiver you could go to Harvard and owe nothing because your tuition was waived. In the reserves they will only pay you $4,500 a year up to a certain number of credits. People will give you shit about going to sick call. If you're truly sick, say fuck them, go and get your treatment, and keep your paperwork. If you want a career, go Air Force. They are the only professional branch. If you want a job that actually does cool shit during peacetime, go Coast Guard. Learn when to volunteer. I've gotten some of the best weeks in my military career from volunteering at the right time. Many people will tell you to never volunteer. They simply made a bad decision. Lastly, you aren't going to become a SEAL or a Ranger, or what have you. It's the equivalent of thinking you're going pro at football when you played second string in high school. It's not going to happen. That's reserved for the truly elite or the officers who've been in their whole lives. Late to the party, but my wife asked me to answer this. I served as an infantryman in the army during the initial invasion. It was hard work and every day felt like it could be your last. After our 12 months we went home, -4. Which isn't bad considering the damage we did to the opposing force. The second deployment, it was more of a hearts and minds experience. We fed the hungry, provided water, fertilizer, and defended the locals. We got to know the people. It was then I realized that as an American soldier, we were not always the good guys. I thought we were the bastion of justice, the moral compass. But when we learned of the atrocities the people had suffered, the innocent lives that were lost, I felt during the first deployment that civilian lives lost were simply residual damage from a country at war. It wasn't until I learned the language and met the people that I realized they were just like us, and they were families torn apart from our actions. I met families whose children were killed in artillery strikes, whose fathers were lost defending their homes from invaders. They were not all against us, they were trying to protect their families from much more armed and trained military machines. We did more good than bad, saved more than we hurt. But the few that lost loved ones because of our actions weighs heavy on my conscience every single day. I wish those that lost loved ones knew we were only trying to help. TLDR, I learned that we are not always the good guys. I wish I had known that going in. I'm late to this thread, but here are 2 things I haven't seen mentioned enough. Learn to save your money. You will find you get paid more than just what goes into your bank account. Your food and housing are completely covered. Even as the years go by and you move off base, you will likely have roommates and get to pocket some of your housing allowance. Be sure to set money back for the future. I saved 50% of my monthly pay for the last 2 years of service. Had I done that for my entire service period instead of buying sushi, liquor, energy drinks, and pre-made food at every convenience, I could have bought a house in full while I attend school. Don't get married for the benefits. I'm an avid reader of r/personal finance, and every now and then some soon-to-be military member will create a post asking about marriage benefits vs staying single. It's not worth it. The lifestyle you think you will have or have had up to this point is about to drastically change. Scroll up and down this post. You and your significant other may think you can handle long periods apart, the strains of moving frequently, or the separation from friends/family, but you won't know the truth until it happens. And chances are, the relationship won't survive it. Be honest with yourself and know that if the relationship is less than a few years old, You haven't lived with the person yet. You already have doubts about staying with this person. You have financial problems / trust issues already. Or if for any other reason you think marriage will solve a problem, you will be spending much more time and money down the road getting a divorce. They happen very frequently in the military. Don't fool yourself. You aren't special or different. You are subject to the same stresses and failures caused by the hardships of the military. Good intentions only go so far. Additionally, the military has its own rules on marriage obligations. Specifically, the military member owes no less than 1/3 of their pay to their spouse, should they choose to separate. So if the parties mutually separate instead of divorce, be prepared to get a letter a year later saying you owe your spouse money. You won't have a choice. They will take your pay and route it to your spouse. And that's only if you don't have kids. Politics is the name of the game. Office politics and real politics. Forget everything you saw on Band of Brothers. The military is not some group of honorable and loyal citizens with integrity standing up to fight the enemies of the nation. It's a giant bureaucracy filled to the brim with high school cliques, pissing matches, backstabbing, and enough political correctness to make a Berkeley women's studies professor proud. You will spend 10 times as much time learning about equal opportunity and sexual harassment than you will ever even touching a weapons system. Everything you say can and will be held against you by anyone who heard it, might have heard it, thought they heard it, or knowingly made up that they heard it. Sire. And when you're done doing that, sire again. And then a third time just to be sure. Vet your real friends very carefully. Join a small group of people you know you can trust, and then be friendly, but not friends with everyone else. Be middle of the road. Watch what you say and do. No joking, no obscene stories, no tales of what you did at the bar. The walls have ears. And hands holding Article 15 paperwork pre-filled out with your name on it. You will see more sheet bags than you ever thought possible. Work is a giant game of musical chairs and the last one to not get out of it is the guy stuck doing it. And usually either the guy least capable, or most capable, but too naive to realize he just volunteered for an extra 10, 20 plus hours of work a week with no extra anything to show for it. If politics is king, then PT is queen, for males. Run, and then run some more. Your entire career depends on it. You can be the smartest, most capable, tactically minded weapons expert with unshareable honor and a sense of duty and selflessness in your unit. But if you're a slow runner, you're going to be taking orders from the meathead, who got a 58 on his ASVAB, has prior drug/alcohol convictions, and can't tell you what caliber the M240B fires. You cannot get flagged for promotions for being stupid. You cannot be flagged for being a sheetbag. You cannot be flagged for failing weapons qual. No one fails. They reshoot you till you pass. You cannot be flagged for not being able to really do much of anything. You can be flagged for not being in shape. If you don't want to be stuck in the lower ranks forever, get in faking shape and stay in shape. If you're female, the PT standards are so low that you pretty much have to show up and not be paralyzed. 4 things that apply to anyone thinking of joining regardless of branch. Do not buy a flashy brand new car. Paying $400 for 6 years will severely impact your ability to save money for more important things, like a home or some backup cash, if you don't want to re-enlist. On that note, don't buy a home. I see so many people move somewhere for their duty station that they've never been to before or are familiar with at all and buy a freaking house, only to realize that they hate the area or they got reassigned halfway around the world. It takes people decades to pay off a home, and chances are you will not still be in that area in 5 years, let alone the 20 or 30 you take out on a home loan. Don't get married unless you truly want to spend the rest of your life with that person and have been dating/living together for a considerable period of time, and you have similar lifetime goals beyond the military, unless you're both lifers. Divorce rates are sky high, and alimony is a beach. Basically, don't get married for the convenience of having a federally recognized relationship status. Don't have kids/go around having unprotected sex. As a woman it kills me to say this, but I've known enough real sheethead chicks to trap guys in with kids by forgetting their pills or something. I want to reiterate that obviously not all women do this or approve. It's a dirtbag move that I feel is equivalent to rap. My point though Take some initiative and use a goddamned condom. So many people grudgingly re-enlist, only because they feel it's the only way to provide for their unplanned kids. Oh, and kids aside, STIs are pretty awful. Just use the condom. And ladies, your birth control is covered, so don't slack on seeing your doctor. TLDR, aim to finish your first enlistment without being in debt to anyone. You won't know for sure if you'll re-enlist until then, and being forced to re-enlist because of poor financial planning when you're not fond of the job will suck your soul. Air Force checking in here. The Army and Marines get cheat on like nobody's business. My Air Force buddy, while in Korea, we were both there, actually found a lost army dude straight from their tech school, or whatever it's called, stranded at a bus stop, because he didn't have a sponsor or they didn't give a fuck or something. It blew my mind that he didn't have instructions the whole way or any contact at all. He just knew the name of the base he needed to get to, but my friend took a few buses and taxis with him to help this poor guy out. PT every faking morning at 5 AM. Fuck that shit. We do it about once a week as a shop, not even as a unit or squadron. My impression is, unless you're an NCO or higher in the more gung-ho branches, you're just a piece of shit it seems. In the Air Force you can get away with calling people dude, bro, man, whatever you want to, within reason. Going to parade dressed in the food court on base when a SS duty and the AF just says hey looks faking awful and stupid to us. Navy seems to be a lot closer than the Army or Marines to our quality of life, at least on some points. The military is fickle. In basic they teach you to be a team, and then when you get to your first base, they teach you to be more of an individual or to blend in, especially out in public. The one thing I wish we could do is legitimately yell at people who are faking idiots. I'm tired of the bossy approaches we have to take, the bullshit mediation tactics to make it seem like it's okay buddy, don't worry, you just messed up, no don't cry, fuck, that shit. All in all, we're the best quality of life. Food still sucks, having roommates still sucks, but it's nearly always better than any other branch's situations. And yes, we get to travel 5 years in, and I've been stationed in 4 different countries, not including the US, enjoying Japan right now actually. Any questions about going Air Force, feel free to PM me. I'll tell you all the good and bad. Don't make these decisions hastily. I love this question. So here it goes. The number one thing they forget to tell you at the recruiting office. So you go to basic training, right? They break you down and reprogram you from a civilian into a soldier. You learn how to run off just a few hours of sleep, constantly pay attention to small details, be aggressive and do things you didn't think you were capable of doing. You learn that it is not merely good enough, that you are doing the right thing. Everyone else must be doing the right thing as well. But while you are being inculcated with all this good training, you are also being desensitized to people's feelings. As a reserve soldier, I had an especially bad transition back into the civilian world. Everyone kept complaining that I was really mean and insensitive. Eventually it all escalated into me losing my devoted girlfriend and too many of my friends who were just tired of my shit. No one understood how such a nice guy was all of a sudden a grade A jerk in a mere 8 weeks. It took a lot of conscious effort on my part to recover from that and learn how to interact with civilians again. So much so that in 8 I was seeing a counselor once a week to help me deal with all personal shit I was going through because of all the friends I lost. Guys, this is a real faking thing that no one seems to remember to tell anyone when joining the military. Maybe they think it only happened to them, or maybe they are too embarrassed to mention how shitty they were. It doesn't happen to everyone, but I've seen it happen to dozens of soldiers. Former AF here. It depends on your career field. In Iraq we slept in tents next to the army guys, but the tents had air conditioning. In garrison the quality of life is great, but deployments are deployments. If you're in a tactical unit like a ground radar unit like I was, you're gonna fill sandbags, and sleep in tents, and eat MREs, when the chow hall is serving the same thing they served for lunch the day before. By same thing from the day before, I don't mean the same type of food, I mean the very same food. Still, it's inside the wire. Just duck the mortars and rockets and pray it's not your time when you're lying in a ditch for 2 hours during alarm red. The biggest thing I can tell you is in the AF you can go in with a guaranteed job. Go in with a guaranteed job. If you want to be, say, a boom operator on a KC-135 and be on flight status and be guaranteed to stay in hotels wherever you go, tell the recruiter that's what you wanna do. Don't fall for some, well, maybe a slot will open up for you. Just go into open general. No. Find your job you want. Get it in writing that this will be your one and only job, and if they try to fuck you, you have the right to wait and/or separate until a slot opens up. The difference between the AF and the Army or Marines, besides the obvious differences, is that not everyone is an infantryman. This is the lowest common denominator with the Army and Marines. No matter what job you have, you will always be able to be an infantryman. Everyone is an infantryman. The AF is not like this, so choose your job, and don't let recruiters tell you that they can't guarantee you a job because that's horseshit. Other than that, my biggest problem with the AF when I was in was that it was all going towards a corporate direction rather than a military one. This was about 10 years ago, mind you. Endless safety briefings about wearing reflective belts while crossing the street, don't drink and drive, don't drink underage, don't go outside the 4-hour travel window on a long weekend, etc. Every faking week. All the while commanders using words like warriors and such, while everyone's sorta like, what the fuck ever, dude, we're not exactly kicking indoors here. Air Force Command is essentially a bunch of generals who want to be more like their Army and Marine buddy generals, but they don't want to give up all that funding from the Pentagon, so they come up with ridiculous ideas to put into place AF-wide, because they literally have nothing to do but invent shit and ask the Pentagon to pay for it, which they always do. In the end, I wouldn't say I would have preferred the Army or the Marines, but at least every day is based around the military somewhat. It's still about the mission. I did all kinds of specialty schools and such for my job in order to get closer to the tactical side of things, becoming an air weapons director, basically a wax on the ground, controlling fighters, pushing them to FACs, intercepting other aircraft, etc. And it's disheartening when you get pulled off a mission, which you need to do every month for numbers to stay current, because you have to go watch a ComSec briefing on a computer for an hour, or attend a briefing about reflective belts, or have your weapons and tactics intel briefing interrupted by the dude taking over the briefing, to instruct everyone how to set up their Outlook, so they can receive his tasks. Bottom line, however, a golf course on every base, easy basic, easy PT, as long as you're not a lazy ass, best quality of life of all the services. I miss the military, but I don't miss being in the military, if that makes any sense. Maybe some of you other veterans can understand. One of the surprising things about the military training is that a lot of it is taken up by bullshit, while often a lot of really important things are only given a brief amount of time. You might spend days doing ceremonial stuff, while only a few hours on the really important weapons systems. Everyone mentions the don't volunteer for anything motto quite a lot, but to expand out on that it should be, don't volunteer for bullshit. From day one you should be monitoring your own learning and trying to fill in gaps. ESP on the field and combat bits, you should be thinking I'm tired as hell, and don't want to, but I haven't had a chance to do a recce patrol yet and they need volunteers. I should volunteer, because I don't want the first time I have ever done one to be doing it for real. Similarly, it might seem surprising, but training staff actually want you to ask questions. If you're not sure, it's better than finding out you don't know when you fail a test. A good NCO won't have a problem if you quietly say after a class I'm a little unsure about this, could I maybe have 15 minutes after a lunch to go over it with you? Of course don't be a Ralph Wiggum and get everyone else in trouble over it. For the love of God be the grey man for as long as you can during training. If you have skill and you're good at the job, it will shine through naturally. Always aim to be 5 minutes early, avoid falling in with the just do enough to get by or don't want to do courses people. Once that negative mindset sets in, it becomes hard to get out of it. You wanna be the guy who wants to do the interesting courses ECT point which keeps it worthwhile. Learn how to polish and iron stuff well. When you fuck up in training, don't try to explain. You will always lose and give the NCOs more ammunition to shout back at you. The best thing to say is no excuse. It gives them nowhere to go with it. Get fit before you go, but don't be a gym knucklehead like in the movies. You need speed, stamina, and local muscular endurance, strength, not pointless poser muscle that you will have to carry around with you. No one in the army is gonna tell you to lift 300 kg barbell for 30 seconds, but they will tell you to lift 60 kg backpack and a 23-pound machine gun for 20 miles. When doing PT, you're always better to be at the front of the group when starting out, etc., as it means you get to hold when the people at the back have to catch up. Try to get yourself on competition teams, shooting teams, platoon and attack teams, etc. Officers are addicted to silverware, prizes, good press, bragging rights, ECT point and treat their winning teams like rare gold and Fabergé eggs. Follow the wet/dry routine when getting into your sleeping bag. You will make the mistake when tired not to do this once in your life, and you will never do that again. Learn how to hide. If you're in a barrack environment and you see a senior NCO with a clipboard, hide like fuck. He is about to give you a shitty job. It's an essential part of military combat training. Treat him like an enemy sniper. Physical training is one of the best ways to hide. Soldier, why the fuck are you in the gym and outside doing shitloads of physical training and getting super fit? Said no NCO/officer to a private ever. If you're an NCO and need to hide, the best way is to be doing something combat-like with your troops. If an officer or senior NCO comes along looking to sting some troops for something shitty and sees you doing some contact drills, FIBA practice or something, the dizzying heights of his rank makes his brain unable to compute, brings satisfaction to his warped mind as he tries to remember coming up with such a good idea, and he will go find another NCO lazing around his bunk to sting for the shitty job. Major time saver, observe your NCOs and officers. If you see them starting to move, you know that you are about to be told to move by your NCOs, so start moving already. Don't wait to be told. Your NCOs have done the same thing as you and seen every single variation of fuck up possible. Though they are shouting at you and it feels like the world is collapsing, they will go back to their office at the end of the day, drink tea and laugh about it. Don't take shit personally. If they like/respect you, and depending on your army culture, when you pass out of training they will take the piss out of you, with you, over a few beers for it. If you're self-motivated and good at what you do, generally your NCOs will pick that up, and it will work out better for you. I remember faking up a minor thing on a company training exercise one time, and being so angry with myself for letting people down. I thought I was gonna get a bowl locking for it. I apologized straight away to the platoon in front of everyone, and was left alone. Why? Because the NCOs were good at what they do, and knew that I was my own worst critic anyway. Giving shit to me wasn't gonna help, when I was clearly eating up myself over it. Make note of all the bullshit things you have to go through during basic training and elsewhere. One day you will be in charge in some way, promotion ECT, and will have a little more leeway to cut that bullshit out. Never be a hypocrite by doing the same thing that you would have hated. If you're a training NCO and you fuck up, be honest about it in front of your men. They will respect you more for it. The worst thing ever is if an NCO fucks up and takes it out on the people below him. Find NCOs and other people who are good at what they do and try to emulate their better parts. Eventually you will grow into yourself, but it's handy to have good role models. Always be fair. Learn how to judge people below you based on their motivations. Don't shout and be an asshole just because that's the only way you know how to manage people. Only if the person is an idiot and faked up and can't be reached in any other way should you do that. We call it the strategic swear word because if you use it too much or shout too much, people stop paying attention. Learn how to switch a temper on and off strategically. You should be able to scream at someone second, "You faking idiot, you nearly got yourself injured," pause, and then continue a conversation. Right then, let this be a lesson and carry on. Don't do it again. It may make people below you think you are weird, but after a while they will learn that it means you are only being fair and reacting to the situation as necessary. If you have to punish someone, always try to treat them with respect for their choice to join the military. Make their punishment should be a combat related one if possible. For example, some bloke turns up without a piece of his equipment and you can either punish him by making him A. run around the square like a chicken saying "I'm a stupid chicken" pointless, or B. sprint in bursts around the square shouting out each stage of the combat contact drill as he goes. Makes more sense. Be approachable to the people below you. As Colin Powell said, if people aren't coming to you with their problems, then something is wrong. Probably you are in a hole, or need to go find out. If you're an NCO or officer and your troops are doing something shitty, digging a latrine, lifting sandbags etc. Unless you have something else to do, don't just stand there and watch, saying well I had to do that in my day, so I'm not gonna do it now. Get involved helping them out as well. Even if you have to go off to do something else later on, they will respect you for it. Half of the military is waiting. When people are on edge, to move it is demoralizing and annoying. If you can, ESP if you're an NCO, try to find out roughly, okay we are waiting for transport but it definitely won't come in the next 15 minutes, so let the guys relax when it will occur. If you are the same rank as someone, E.G training NCO, never allow another person of the same rank to do something wrong or to set a negative agenda. Hey, let's fuck with the troops for no reason. You earned the rank as well, don't let yourself be pushed around. Similarly, if a high-ranking person does something really bad to someone, don't be afraid to stop it or speak up. If an NCO is too much of a coward to risk losing his rank to protect his people, then his is probably too much of a coward to risk his life protecting people when it really matters. The high-ranking person doesn't own the people below him, your country does. You are entrusted to protect them on behalf of your country, not some dumbass above you. Military training is a big game, and as a new recruit you are supposed to lose. If you're the training NCO you are told to find a flaw. Just accept that it is a game, and get on with it. You will get screwed for stupid stuff, laugh it off later on and carry on. The military is the most homoerotic place you will ever be. I really have no idea how the US used to have its stupid ban on gay serving in the military. You might think you're a certain type of macho manly guy, aka you're an asshole, but within a few weeks, there is a 110% chance you will wake up with some balls in your face and half the platoon singing the Bee Gees purely because you feel asleep before everyone else. There are two specific quiet types of people, guys in training, who often get a bit left out of the in-group, which often forms pretty early. Take time to talk to both, and include them if you can. Because they are either the quiet dude who really shouldn't be there, will drop out later, and might be a bit insane in the first place. The quiet dude who is gonna end up in special forces, because he knows his shit, is damn good at what he does, and just wants to get on with the job. Ditto the guy who, when everyone else is snapping towels in the showers, just sits in the corner at night reading Arabic poetry. I wish I knew stuff before I joined the AF. A civilian's boss doesn't find out if that civilian gets a speeding ticket. But if you so much as spit in the wrong place in the Air Force, your boss finds out, your pay may be impacted, and your career is at risk. Everything, from how well you clean your quarters, mow your lawn, how drunk you get at the club, whether you pay your bills on time, who you associate with, is inexorably linked to your career, because it's discovered by your boss/commander and/or first sergeant. That's an added pressure, besides possibly dying in war, many people can't cope with and didn't expect. Uncle Sugar breaks promises that were made in the recruiter's office, and even documented/contractual promises. If you're going in for benefits, you will likely be disappointed at some point. Join because you feel the call, and not much else. Avoid the aircraft maintenance career field. It's often undermanned, and hence 12-hour shifts abound, while the rest of the base is home sleeping/partying. Cops and ACF main share the two highest suicide rates in the AF. Source: a FOSI. Cops have guns when they are depressed, after losing their girlfriend, or whatever. But an ACF mechanic offs himself, because his career field actually sucks that much. He actually premeditates his suicide after some months/years of job strife. Just think of it. Sexual harassment confirmation can be achieved without evidence. It can mean you're guilty, because one or more people had a convincing story which was corroborated by other convincing people. Yes, sexual harassment happens, of course. But if you're in a supervisory role, be cautious about who you volunteer for extended duty hours/work, and how you ask, for example. Speaking of evidence, or lack thereof, as a first sergeant, disciplinary arm of the commander, I discovered most Article 15s, and separations too, happen via confession by the troop. The commander has no evidence in 90% of these cases, and hence the troop was drilled into confession via promises of leniency, or whatever. Note, the military is governed by the UCMJ. It's a separate justice system which is actually rather excellent, streamlined, and protects the individual's rights in accordance with the fading constitution, and sometimes better than civilian courts. Of course, if you are dumb enough to confess yourself into a separation from the military, the commander is obliged to let you. The AF has possibly the best promotion system in the universe, seriously. It's unparalleled in the civilian world, many checks and balances, a point system, that is a sum of your job performance, your job knowledge, your military knowledge, your time in grade, time in service, and your awards/decorations. Yet, there are still some flaws, apparently. AF prides itself on being an equal opportunity employer, and so it puts serious effort into keeping everybody promoting equally too. If you are astute and perceptive, you'll see it, but you'd be a fool to talk about it to anyone but your most trusted ally. So, beach about it to a friend, never discuss it in mixed company, and learn to love the better parts of the promotion system. Because really, it's great, even with the flaws. You'll never see a civilian equivalent or even close 20-year vet here. Good luck to you, mates. PTSD is the realization that you'll never be this cool again, ever. Just a small note buried in all these comments. You go through so goddamn much in the military. Every single day is a huge obstacle of bullshit that you have to somehow get through. Oh, you have to sweep the mechanics bay while a sandstorm hits with the doors open. Have to cut grass with scissors just because. Rake the sand so that the lines will make everything look super duper pretty for Command Sergeant Major. But you also get to deploy, hopefully, and you finally get to do your job. What you signed up for and much more. It isn't perfect in any way, at all. But at least it is something. You've got armor, guns, and Old Glory behind you waving its freedom fuck yous to whoever stands in the United States Army's way. You think you're a part of something glorious, and you are, but only to you and your unit. You get back home and everyone beaches so faking much. It's so hot in this 2015 Lexus. Turn up the account now. Seriously? You don't know what the fuck hot is. And you'll be thanked for your service constantly, even though they have no idea what dumb things you had to do every faking day, and there's no way you can relay that to the appreciative. It never ends until it does. A sense of identity is gone. Uncle Sam is my favorite family member. I loved and hated him so faking much, but it gave me everything I didn't want but also needed. I'm at a great university, have awesome goals, accomplished more than ever, but in the end I still have a deep hatred that I want back in my life more so today. But not really. Well kinda. No. It's like a bad breakup with someone you loved. I'll never do anything this cool again, ever. Former soldier here. Probably one of the odd jobs that the military offers is K9 handler. Those guys and gals that get out and find a similar job in the government/civilian section can do very well. As others have posted on here, utilize the GI Bill, or as some refer to it, the Post 9/11 Bill. One useful advantage is that I used it at a college/university when I got out, and not being in student debt is a great thing. Also, have a binder with multiple copies of all important documents. Hunters love a big rack makes excellent points. First, save every scrap of paper that you receive. Make a binder that includes copies of all your orders, certificates, important documents, evaluation reports, medical information, etc. Have copies of everything. It seems like overkill, but paperwork goes missing all the time. Second, if you are sick, go to sick call. If you get paperwork from the doctor, keep a copy in your binder. If you get hurt, go to sick call. If it is severe, make sure you get line of duty paperwork. Each small injury might not seem like a big deal, but after a few years, they add up. You don't want to be 30 years old with the joints of a 60-year-old and no paperwork to back up your history. Third, if you need mental health treatment, go to mental health. Stop caring about what other people say. If you need help, go get it. Fourth, speak up for yourself. Be your own advocate. Not everyone has your best interest in mind. If you don't think something is right, voice your opinion. professionally. 5th, don't be afraid to volunteer for cool missions and opportunities. Being able to control some aspects of your career feels pretty awesome. Search around, go on forums, check opportunities, network, etc. 6th, go to school. Actual school. Don't let the military convince you that University of Phoenix is your end goal. Do whatever you want to do, so you have skills when you leave the service. Use your GI Bill. I'm in the Air Force. I think it's similar in other branches, but the bureaucracy is mind-numbing. Every action has its own form and regulation. Want to get access to a computer? There's a form for that, and a regulation governing how to fill out that form. Want to take leave? There is at least one form that, and I've seen up to 4 forms for that. One requesting leave, which has to be approved by a supervisor and supervisor's supervisor. A checklist that proves that your training, part, etc. is up to date, which involves printing out multiple documents. One for a safety/anti-terrorism brief, if you are going somewhere where terrorists may be. One for a detailed travel plan, if you're under 26, which includes printing out maps, travel itinerary, etc. Want to get married and have your spouse live with you? There are way more forms to fill out. Not to mention, the regulations for what you do can require you to think like a lawyer. I work in aircraft maintenance, and you would think that fixing the jets would be the most important thing. However, there are so many regulations, which are well intentioned and meant to maintain safety, but are followed so strictly sometimes that you spend several hours preparing to work on a job that takes 15 minutes. Granted, it is all for safety's sake, but anytime somebody makes an excuse for how they faked up and hurt themselves/somebody else, there needs to be a rule invented to fix the root cause of the problem. People can't just fuck up. There has to be a way to fix it, even if it was just an accident. Oh, and if you do fuck up, you have to do a root cause analysis, which involves filling out several forms, which are potentially filed away in a cabinet/computer for years and then simply deleted. For example, say you drop a bolt that you're working with, and it gets lost. You then have to fill out a form describing what you were doing, what the bolt was for, why/how you lost it, where you looked for it afterwards, and it has to get signed and watched over by about 5 other people. Then, whether you find it or not, you or a supervisor will have to fill out a document on the exact same things, but this one will try to identify any errors in the process and/or regulations/technical data. Did the 2. Technical order, a step-by-step guide on how to do the job you are performing, tell you clearly enough to not drop the bolt? Could this have been prevented if we put a warning statement in there that says the bolt may slip out of your hand? Is there some kind of training that can be accomplished that will raise awareness about dropping bolts? If so, can we make it a fancy CBT, computer-based training, that will have to be accomplished every year? Can we improve the way we look for bolts after they are dropped? How does the dropping of bolts affect the mission? Is there a way we can cut down on the impact of dropping bolts? And then, these may have to be reviewed and signed by every person on the way up the chain of command, who then adds or tells the original writer to change something, and continues to go back and forth as supervisor after supervisor reads it. The only thing that saves us from the bureaucracy is its inefficiency. If only this protected us from the bureaucracy in the first place. All jobs in the military more or less fall into 2 categories. Badass grunt jobs (POG), person other than grunt jobs, i.e. support jobs like computer technicians, intelligence, logistics. If you want to be a grunt, go Army or Marines and sign up for a job like infantry or tanker or artillery or combat engineer. You'll blow things up, you'll go to the range and shoot guns, you'll be doing fun shit. You'll also spend a lot of time doing non-grunt things like cleaning toilets, vehicle maintenance, taking inventory of equipment, mowing grass, and stripping/waxing/polishing floors. But, you'll get the best combat training there is, and, if you really love it, you can get the chance to go into something like Special Forces/Force Recon/Rangers. Do not join the Air Force expecting to do badass stuff. There are a very small handful of Air Force dudes who have jobs like forward observer, call-in bombers, or para-jump rescue, PJs, operators who recover down at pilots behind enemy lines. Oh, and I think fighter pilot is pretty badass, but that is besides the point. You will not come out of the military on the other end of things with the same opportunities that a POG has. You won't come out the other side with zero job skills like some people say, but chances are your skill sets will transfer to something like armed security or law enforcement. That being said, I know guys who were infantrymen for 4 years, did a couple tours in Iraq, and then went to school on the GI Bill and got office jobs. The organizational skills they learned in the military translated well into civilian life. If you want to be a POG, then go Air Force, or maybe the Navy. If you're a POG in the Army/Marine Corps, you're 1. Getting shit on by the grunts, and 2. Probably not going to get the same technical skills training you would in an organization like the Air Force, where 99% are POGs. Also, as a POG in a grunt world, you're going to spend a lot of time getting combat training, but it will probably be a bit half-assed. You'll go to the range once or twice a year to check the box on your mandatory rifle qualification. Now, if you're looking for technical skills training POG jobs, go into the Air Force. I'm a civilian now, and I work with a few fellow veterans, some of whom are retired Air Force. The Air Force, as an organization, focuses on making you a technical expert in your field, whatever that is. They don't expect you to be a super stud combat killer, and they don't train you to be one. They train you to do maintenance on $1,000,000 fighter bombers, or coordinate geospatial communications with satellites, or network supercomputers. That is your job, and time spent doing menial labor is time wasted. The Air Force, as an organization, also prioritizes the well-being of their people. They're investing a bunch of money in training you, and they want to keep you and your family happy in your career. That means you get better perks, better housing, better chow halls, better gyms, work/life balance policies, shorter deployments, etc. They want to make it more enticing to stay vs losing quality people to the civilian workforce. The Army and the Marine Corps, from what I understand, has a bad attrition rate of their best performers. The culture is different. You're expected to live/work in shittier conditions, because that is the life of a grunt, even if your job is not a grunt job. If you sign up for the Air Force and get a good technical skills job, you can do it for a few years and then get out and get a decent job, or go to school on the GI Bill and further your education. Your opportunities will be different. The last thing I would say to someone joining the military: if you think you can get into college, then do that and go into ROTC or DOCS, regardless of branch of service. The best leadership training out there is in the military, and if you play your cards right, you'll walk out the other end with a debt-free degree and organizational skills that are very desirable to an employer. As an enlisted female in the Air Force, I'm no soldier, so my response may be irrelevant. I wish I had known more about the officer side of the house. I probably would have gone ROTC instead of dropping out of college to join. He pay is not even close to as bad as people often complain about. As an E4 I make base pay $2,122.80, bar in MD with dependents $2,139, and base $367.92. That's $4,629.72 before taxes/life insurance. My residency is my husband's parents' house in Tennessee, so no state taxes and only base pay is taxable anyway. It may not seem like a ton, but I know exactly when my next paycheck is arriving and how much it will be, which makes for easy budgeting. What in the hell my job actually was. Granted, I chose my job before going to basic, but the internet only told me so much. I'm Operations Intelligence 1N0X1, and it's incredibly easy in the command I'm in, and the deployments are awesome. Germany, rental car, stupid easy hours. However, if you like to know how the weather is outside, like being able to check your phone regularly, don't like public speaking, and get bored easily, then it's definitely not for you. Not all deployments are shitty. I assumed I would be deployed every 6 months, and with some jobs you are, but I had to beg for a deployment just to gain experience in my job. Then instead of getting to go to a hostile location and serve my country in the way that I had imagined before I joined, they sent me to Germany. I'd rather be downrange. However, Germany is the deployment lottery, $68 per diem, yes, $68 per day for 6 months, and family SEP pay, $250 a month. Roughing it out in the on-base hotel, and driving a 3 Series BMW. The government pays for lodging and rental car, plus gas, up to a reasonable amount, and I didn't have a home/rent or car payment back in the States, so I pocketed everything. I spent $100 a month on food, and $100 a month on booze, and they provided me with a cell phone. I also would jump on a mission downrange at least once a month, so I got tax-free for the entire month, got some experience, and qualified for the Savings Deposit Program, SDP. The bond/connections that you will make. If I break down in a random state as I'm driving back home, and I have no family in that state to help me, I know for a fact that I could go on Facebook and find an acquaintance that I added from say, basic training, whom is from that state, or knows someone from that state that will drop what they are doing and come help me. Each branch is small, so it's easy to make a lot of acquaintances that you'll see again and again. You'll see civilians differently. It's almost like two different worlds. I once saw a manager at a Target ask another employee to clean up a spill on the floor, and the employee rolled her eyes and said, "Yeah, MMMK, I'll get to it when I get to it." I literally froze right there and was like, oh shit, this is it. This is where you die. And the manager didn't do anything about it. In my head I'm thinking, no you rude little beach. The proper response is, yes sir, and then you need to fast walk your ass to that mop bucket and get it done pronto. And the fact that the manager didn't make her get on her face or go trim the grass out front with fingernail clippers was appalling. How much it would affect my body. I shredded my labrum, had surgery, and now I only have 60% mobility. Goodbye, sports. My hips click and pop all the time. Bursitis isn't fun. Chronic migraines. Just all kinds of painful shit. Yeah, I get a retirement check, but it's not enough to make up for everything I'm missing out on. How much it would affect my relationships. I got married in the army. Don't do that. I don't care what you say. She may be the one now, but she won't be for long. The military is a single person's gig. Trust me. How much time would be spent doing absolutely nothing? Don't forget your phone charger. It'll be dead by noon. At least if you're in garrison. How you are a body with a number, not a person. Brigade or battalion will call your unit for 4 soldiers to go to a detail. It's pretty much whoever your 1SG sees first. How often you'll have suicide awareness classes. Once a week, maybe every 2 weeks if you're lucky. It's a huge issue in the military, so they're fighting it, but I swear to God, if I hear it's a permanent solution to a temporary problem one more time, I might flip. I do still have my ACE card though. How homesick you'll get at first, and how comfortable you'll be once that goes away. It's weird. I love being home, but when I got out and went back, I didn't feel at home anymore. So I left, and started a life in another state. How ingrained the culture will be in your head. Everything in my house and at my work desk has to be dress right dress or I get frustrated. I cuss all the time. When I talk to a superior at work, I put my hands behind my back subconsciously. I eat so fast. My girlfriend holds my hand, so I slow down a bit. Those are just a few. I could go all day. Former Air Force here. Learn how to save some money and basic personal finance. A lot of the people I watched in the dorms pissed their money away on new cars/credit card/trips, and few invested in their future or thoughts to after the military. By all means, have fun, but do save some. I'm 27 now, and do not have to work any longer if I choose not to due to saving and investing the money the military essentially throws at you, since they pay for everything and have bonuses for some critical jobs. Work on your education while in the service. I'm uncertain if tuition assistance is still available, but most people I knew did not utilize it, nor did they clap or even attempt them. I received something ridiculous like 30+ credits simply by going and taking some rather easy tests at the education center. Studying is not even necessary for a majority of them if you have some basic background knowledge or high school education. Network with those that are involved in careers or areas you may be interested in after you get out. There are a lot of great people that can vouch for you or help you get in the door if you wish to come back in as a federal or contract worker. I can only speak for intelligence and its side of things, but I imagine this would apply to other careers as well. Research the branch and type of job you are interested in. I personally would avoid the Army and Marines. I worked on joint bases throughout my time and those two branches were treated by far the worst. I would rank it USCG, USAF, Navy, Army, and finally Marines as far as treating their personnel went. They seemed to be treated more as tools/numbers than humans. The other three services treated their members pretty well. Be in moderate physical condition or ready to exercise for basic and PT. The standards are not difficult, but if you're really out of shape you may struggle. Keep a folder or inventory of papers, records, etc. Some of it will get lost, and you will be happy to have a replacement or copy easily available. People make mistakes, and may lose things, and others are simply incompetent. Learn and read the AFIS or your selected branch's version, or at least the areas that pertain to you and your career field. I'm not certain how to phrase this well, but it can protect you and your flight/friends. While most of the regulations and rules are drivel, some of them are there for safety/protection of people. They saved me from some additional duties due to rank requirements for the positions in the AFIS. I would say a combination of a lot of posts I've seen. But I personally would have gone to school first, got my college education, joined the ROTC while in college, and came out as an officer. I was never an officer, just enlisted, but to start off as an officer would have been nice. Better living conditions, and yes, I was in my 5-star Air Force living quarters, more pay, and less sheet rolls down your way. And definitely do my education before joining. I personally found it hard to go from making a good living, but benefits, and a roof to stay under, to getting out, going back to school, having to learn how to learn again, unless you took classes while you were in, going to school with a bunch of young idiots/immature, not saying they all were, or I was 100% serious at all times. Kids who are there because their mommy and daddy wanted them to go there, all while trying to get your life outside the military figured out. Living with your parents after you have been on your own for the last 4 to 6 years, well as Air Force folks, or living by yourself/family, but now struggling to find a full-time job with benefits, good pay, and also works with your full-time school schedule, so you can go to class. There were great transition classes we took to go from military to civilian world. But that doesn't help you get a job you don't qualify for, because you didn't know your recruiter was getting you to meet his quota, and you were in a field of work you don't want to do the rest of your life. So, go to school first, join the military as an officer, get out and enjoy your life and your family, and live happily ever after. You will have no fixed schedule in your life if you chose infantry in the army. Most civilians and even non-combat arms work 9 to 5 days a week. You will be at work at least 10 hours a day every 2 to 3 months for 2 weeks at a time. You will be doing some repetitive training in the field with blank ammunition to make your co look good. Your days will be slow, boring, and frustrating, but the years will fly by. Worse if you choose airborne, because they screw you over hard and often, and pay you $150 a month extra to justify it. New guys take every jump that's not during the work week, and you're not getting that time off back. Jumps take all day to prep for, and are usually at night, so you'll be home by 4 AM the next day. After your first 10 or so jumps it loses its excitement, and it's just an outdated tactic. With current use you're not guaranteed a deployment anymore. Half the guys I served with went through their first 3 or 4 year contract in garrison. If you do deploy, they will run you ragged with missions for as long as you're there, especially on shorter deployments. My 101-day deployment in only had 50 days of missions, but they lasted 4 or 5 days at a time. We walked 150 miles over that time, according to the LT's GPS, through ankle breaking, plodded up farmland with almost 100 pounds of gear. I'm 160, 5 feet 10, weighed around 250 on most missions. Got attacked a few times, but always from really far away for maybe a minute. Even if I did shoot someone I'd never know it was my kill. 1 out of every 10 new guys that joined our company didn't regret choosing airborne infantry. Lower your expectations and sign a 3-year contract. You can always re-up to Hawaii or Germany if you want to stay in. That's just my experience, but from what my other friends from basic have said, it's mostly the same all over. except Hawaii. Practice and study for the ASVAB. It's the test you take in processing to determine what jobs you can get and other benefits. I scored high on it and was able to get an $8,000 sign-on bonus. Like others have said, go Air Force and take a job that is indoors and easy. Don't worry about learning a valuable skill through your job. Instead, take the easy job like finance and you'll have tons of free time to go to college while you're in. The guys that take the mechanic jobs so they can learn a skill end up being glorified parts changers working long hours with absolutely no free time, while the people in finance keep bank hours and get college degrees. And don't pick infantry or something because you want to be a special forces badass. Anyone can go special forces from any job. You can train and apply to go special forces or special operations, Air Force, or Ranger training from your finance job. For your first time, take a very short enlistment 2.5 to 3 years tops for your first enlistment. That way you're not locked in if you decide you absolutely hate it or hate your job. When re-enlistment time comes up, you can re-enlist for a different job or to be stationed at a different location. Research where you want to be stationed and with what division. I was able to pick the division that I want to serve in and get it in writing on your enlistment contract. You can also get what's called stabilization. Stabilization is where you're guaranteed to not get moved from the location you choose for a designated number of years. When I was in, you could get 2 years stabilization. If you don't get stabilization, they can stick you anywhere they want, and unless you have an uncle that's a colonel or something, they'll more than likely stick you in the worst hellhole they can find. Don't believe anything your recruiter tells you unless you get it in writing with a signature and seal. I was told I would get AS mechanic certified on the job, and that was a complete lie. I was a glorified parts changer working from before dawn to well after dark every day, and was denied time off to attend classes, while people with more relaxed jobs were attending free classes and getting their certifications and degrees. TLDR, open whatever jobs mean you don't care what job you get, so pick the one you want up front and be patient. If you pick open, it won't be revealed to you until after basic training, and you have almost no say in the matter unless someone else open wants to trade. Now on to what I had to say. Edit for formatting. Former USAF. No matter what branch you choose, no matter what the recruiter tells you, and no matter the sign-on bonus you are offered, don't select any job that has open in the title. Open electronics, open mechanical, open general, etc. Whatever they tell you, it means and not you get to decide what career path you are on. It is open-ended. I have seen it too many times. Young airman comes through, wants to work on computers or networking systems, has 3D0x3, cybersecurity, as his top pick, signs the paper and done. A few minutes go by, MEPS guy comes back, hey, the system says there are no more slots for that job right now. You can keep this and stay in the queue for the next open slot, or we can put you in now as open electronics with a note to give you 3D0x3, as they usually have slots available reserved through that. What do you want to do? Not knowing the system, they say, sure, I'll gladly give up my dream job because I'm impatient, and take a gamble that you actually aren't just trying to get your quota up. When do I start? Now, he has Flightline Avionics or Avionics Back Shop. Why? The aircraft have flight computers, navigation computers, fighter data link networks, cryptographic secure communications. All things he wanted, but now just in a 12 to 14 hour day outdoor environment, with his choice of Afghanistan, Korea, Afghanistan, Japan, Afghanistan, or Afghanistan for deployment options every 14 months for 6 to 8 months if he's lucky. Is it a good job to have? Hell yeah. Best 12 years I had, best teammates to work with, learned about and saw a lot of the world. I've seen 4 continents and 38 countries, and have been colder, Alaska in winter, and hotter, Afghanistan in summer, than I ever thought possible to be comfortable. But that airman, he just got a DUI, because he is depressed and pissed off at everything and everyone around, that he didn't get his dream job. He signed on for 6 years, so he'll have to wait 5 until he can try to change it, as that job is in high demand yet has few slots. He might get kicked out before then. Or maybe he'll get it through his head that damn it, he's in the United States Air Force, working on multi-million-dollar aircraft, getting to see the world. He'll have an entire base's worth of people's jobs centered around making sure he can do his to the best of his ability, make great friends, a few enemies, but could be having the time of his life. So a different tact here, mistaken assumption from an Air Force maintenance/munitions officer after I joined. I had no idea how utterly cutthroat bias the officer side can be. My father and 3 of my brothers were all enlisted, and all in different branches. Based off of their complaints/suggestions, I got a commission several years after I was out of college and had been working civilian side, and the late age coming in definitely helped. No pimply faced second LT here. However, I also took their concerns to heart and did my absolute damnedest to help my troops out. Really enjoyed fixing my folks' problems where I could, but quickly became disgusted with how the system simply is not geared that way. Get into work before my folks and stay after they have all left. Receive a suggestion that my time would be better spent hobnobbing with the colonels on first Fridays. Jump in and help my guys at the MAC on a bear-based deployment. Garner advice that it would prove more beneficial to sit in the ops tent and listen to the general prattle. Work the weekends to help out my folks in control. Be told that I should look at taking up golf instead. The whole system is geared this way currently. I had the honor of being asked to re-enlist over 350 enlisted personnel and conducted 25 retirements by the time I was a captain. How much does this weigh in on your performance report? Not at all. Consistently received excellent work performance ratings, but lost out most award opportunities to officers that spent 5 hours at work and the rest of their time dicking around with the brass. Any real maintenance officer knows that he probably won't make it above Maj/LT col cause you just don't have the free time to politicize yourself to the top. Sure, your troops might love you, but you won't go anywhere in the long run. The SHARP program, sexual harassment/assault, is used as a weapon against a lot of innocent soldiers. If Sergeant X asked PFCY to complete a task, and PFCY is a sheetbag who just doesn't like to work, they can just walk up to the chaplain, or whoever, and file a SHARP complaint, and say Sergeant X tried to rap me. If there is no proof of Sergeant X's innocence, it's quite possible there might be some level of reprimand anyway. It's fucking disgusting. I'm a mechanic in the National Guard. Active duty, you're always working on something, but the only time I turn a wrench in the guard is on at. The other 11 months out of the year our leadership utilizes us to clean the armory, landscaping, painting, general area beautification. Also, to get a job as a tech or a dude's jobs you have to know somebody. It's a good old boy system for getting a job and getting awards. I know 90% of that is just my unit and not the military as a whole, but you will run the risk of ending up in a unit like mine. You meet some of the best and worst people you will ever encounter in your life. It's one good soldier for every 7 or so sheet bags. I mean the most lazy, degenerative, unmotivated, rude pieces of shit you will ever encounter. These are the people that you look at and think to yourself, how the fuck did you make it in? And then you realize your paycheck is the same, and you're in the army under the same standards as they are. From an outside perspective, you and that sheethead over there are observed to be equals. Another thing, my unit is disbanding soon. Like 75% of our mechanics are gonna be gone, so they are encouraging us to find homes for ourselves and reclass so we go to a unit that we want to go to. I've been trying to transfer to this new unit for 6 months and they won't sign off. Long story short, when I get past my enlisted chain of command to figure out why I'm nicely told to fuck off. Found out through a buddy they want me to be one of the 25% to stay there, if they can help it, because I'm one of the non-sheet bags. It's a terrible unit, and I don't want to stay there, and they won't even tell me they want to keep me there / give me the reason they haven't signed off on my transfer themselves. Backstory: I joined the army at 19 years old. I did no apply myself at school, barely passing high school, not because I'm not intelligent, but because I honestly gave zero fucks. I was working a morning shift at UPS as an unloader. I had experimented with marijuana and saw myself going down a path I knew was no bueno. I joked about joining the army for weeks with my mother before one day coming home with the signed papers with a date I would depart. Fast forward almost 9 years later. I'm a staff sergeant, E6. I have led soldier into combat. I'm responsible for training, mentoring, and developing young soldiers. I have lived all over the world, including Germany, South Korea, Iraq, Kuwait, and Afghanistan. I have mentored foreign army soldiers, grooming them to be self-sufficient and able to defend their country against insurgency. I have almost died on several occasions during my vacations abroad. I'm a father of 3 children, giving them the father and childhood I never had. The answer to OP is simple. I wish I would have known how great of man and father the military would make me into. Had I known, I wouldn't have joined at 19. I would have joined at 18. I never would have seen myself where I'm today, and only the military is to thank for this. The military, though not for everyone, is the single-handedly best thing that has ever happened to me. And though some will say I drink the Kool-Aid, I would recommend it to anyone who wants to better themselves as a person. Short, do not enlist. Enlisting is for suckers. Long, my biggest mistake was being too smart for high school. ACA, not trying, rebelling, passing my stupid classes with little effort, because it was beneath me, or so I thought in my wise young years. Dumb. My parents are poor. After graduation, it was get a job, or get a job, and go to school. I chose the former, because I thought school is for suckers. In retrospect, it kind of is, but if you don't have structure or know what to do with your life, it is more important than volunteering to be everyone's little man slave for 4 to 6 years. I worked at Nz's ball valve company in Houston, Texas for a year, and got tired of the chemicals, and pretending to speak redneck with a bunch of old, broke-back, white hillbillies. I didn't want that future. I loved computers as a hobby since childhood. So I went down to the local Air Force recruiter and took my ASVAB, scored high, and got a computer job 3C0X1, which isn't around anymore. Did 5 years and got out. During my enlistment, I was treated like complete shit. I had to kiss everyone's ass and was talked down to quite routinely. I enjoyed my time overseas and my life experiences in general, but I always found myself envious of the officer's life. Straight out of OTC/Ox, 01, but a bar is higher rank than any enlisted man and earns about the same as an E7 that has been in roughly 10 to 12 years. Look up the pay grades if you want specifics. I don't care. The military also pays off your student loans. Officers get automatic rank up to 03, then need to make 04 if they want to have a shot at renewing that fat commission, but this has no effect on paying off your student loans, which will be gone by year 8. Basically, an officer doesn't have to work unless he flies aircraft. An officer is essentially a decision maker or a business manager. He gets a team of worker bees, and though the officer may get yelled at or treated like shit from time to time, he can make his worker bees do all of the work for him and go home early every day. If one of your worker bees fucks up, well, you may get yelled at, but essentially, you can toss your lowest ranking worker bee under the bus and you get away with murder, or go golfing with your officer buddies during office hours. I got out in 08 feet. There were some structural changes going on then, but overall, cliques are bound to form in each squadron, and officers are on top of the food chain. Each squadron is different, and not all officers can get away with stuff given the environment. However, statistically speaking, you have a much higher chance of getting away with stuff, working less, and getting paid more if you are an officer. Not to sound too generic, but would it be worth joining the military at age 25 with mediocre work history and a bachelor's degree? I graduated in political science, did some freelance journalism, and was a local political analyst. Did some campaign stuff too, but now I'm kinda having a rough time looking for solid full-time work that offers a salary good enough to survive with all things considered. I've had career advisors talk about going in a branch as an officer, but I've been told countless of times off the cuff by ex and current military people that these people get zero respect. It's more trouble than it's worth if you had no prior military experience, which is understandable, and that all the branches are stacked to the gills for candidates due to people turning towards the program due to the rougher economic times. What's the truth in all this, and what else is there to consider? Would it make more sense to just go enlist despite the degree and all that? I apologize if I sound unfamiliar and out of my depth with things. I'm just in a desperate situation where I'm not where I should be in life, and I figure it might be worth a go to look into to ensure I could be off the streets and get some training for something that could yield better results than my current situation. Lastly, do I fall in the older age range for military where I'd be passed on due to the age I'd be when I get out, or is that not too big of an issue? I appreciate any feedback. A letter from Bob Norris. The 22nd of December 2005. Young man, congratulations on your selection to both the Naval and Air Force academies. Your goal of becoming a fighter pilot is impressive and a fine way to serve your country. As you requested, I'd be happy to share some insight into which service would be the best choice. Each service has a distinctly different culture. You need to ask yourself, which one am I more likely to thrive in? USAF snapshot. The USAF is exceptionally well organized and well run. Their training programs are terrific. All pilots are groomed to meet high standards for knowledge and professionalism. Their aircraft are top-notch and extremely well maintained. Their facilities are excellent. Their enlisted personnel are the brightest and the best trained. The USAF is homogeneous and macro. No matter where you go, you'll know what to expect. What is expected of you, and you'll be given the training and tools you need to meet those expectations. You will never be put in a situation over your head. Over a 20-year career, you will be home for most important family events. Your mom would want you to be an Air Force pilot, so would your wife. Your dad would want your sister to marry one. Navy snapshot. Aviators are part of the Navy, but so are black shoes, surface warfare, and bubbleheads, submariners. Furthermore, the Navy is split into two distinctly different fleets, West and East Coast. The Navy is heterogeneous and micro. Your squadron is your home. It may be great, average, or awful. A squadron can go from one extreme to the other. Before you know it, you will spend months preparing for cruise and months on cruise. The quality of the aircraft varies directly with the availability of parts. Senior Navy enlisted are salt of the earth. You'll be proud if you earn their respect. Junior enlisted vary from terrific to the troubled kid the judge made join the service. You will be given the opportunity to lead these people during your career. You will be humbled and get your hands dirty. The quality of your training will vary, and sometimes you will be over your head. You will miss many important family events. There will be long stretches of tedious duty aboard ship. You will fly in very bad weather and or at night, and you will be scared many times. You will fly with legends in the Navy and they will kick your ass until you become a lethal force. And some days, when the scheduling gods have smiled upon you, your jet will catapult into a glorious morning over a faraway sea, and you will be drop-jawed that someone would pay you to do it. The hottest girl in the bar wants to meet the naval aviator. That bar is in Singapore. Point bottom line, son, if you gotta ask, pack warm and good luck in Colorado. Bangs APS. Air Force pilots wear scarves and iron their flight suits. PSS. And oh yes, the Army pilot program. Don't even think about it unless you got a pair bigger than basketballs. Those guys are completely crazy. Seen a lot of stuff about after getting in. Here's some advice about boot camp, specifically Navy RTC. One thing a recruiter will tell you is true. It's a recruiter's job to get you in. It's MEP's job to disqualify you. Whatever you do, try to hold out for a rate job that interests you. If you go in with a rate that doesn't interest you, or end up with the open rate, name is slipping my mind, you will regret it. You do get a chance to try and change your rate once you're at RTC Great Lakes for the Navy, but it's never a guarantee. You're already in, so it takes a pretty specific set of circumstances to change. Have your finances in order before going. The Navy is especially picky about this. Bad credit, collections, etc. All of those can bite you in the ass. Those first couple of days suck during P days. The earlier you end up leaving your MEPS, the longer it's going to be. If you take your oath in the morning, but find out you're not leaving until the afternoon, take advantage of that and try to get some sleep, especially if you have a long flight. Once you check in at the Yuzo at O'Hare, you're going to be awake for the next 36 hours or so. Contrary to what your RDCs will tell you about the fastest way getting out is graduation, that wasn't the case with my group. We started with 85 in my division and graduated with less than 50. A few got us mod, one got faking us mode 3 days before graduation, which means he was held back to go through boot camp again. Some ended up getting separated out. Hell, we lost 10 in the first week due to medical/mental. If you're hurt, don't try to hide it. An RDC may give you shit because it's their job to push you, but if you're legitimately hurt, go to sick call. One of our guys blew out his ACL and tried to finish one of our workouts. He obviously didn't last long and the RDCs lit him up for not telling them. Didn't matter anyways, as he ended up getting sent home. The Navy can only keep you at RTC Great Lakes for 180 days. ACL recovery, as most everyone knows, is a lot longer than that. I still talk with one of the guys who got separated out. He ended up really depressed, but nothing terrible. He said that everyone who was set up for separation was put on suicide watch. He spent 3 weeks at Ship 5 and said it was the most boring 3 weeks of his life. All he did was read until 1600, then they watched movies. So, if you're separated out for whatever reason, be prepared for boredom. You're going to get yelled at. A lot. Everyone does. The entire division will and everyone is going to seem like they're faking up. The division will do well with a good set of leaders in your group, so when it comes time, be sure to go with someone you think will be strong. Do not volunteer unless you're ready to take the most punishment, though. It can be both good and bad, but RDCs will remove you if you're faking up. Want to have a leg up on everyone? Here's some things to absolutely know. Know the 11 general orders. You don't have to be perfect with rate, but know what ranks are. Chiefs/senior chiefs/master chiefs faking lick their chops waiting for someone to call them a chief when they are a senior or master chief. You'll see officers, but not nearly as much as you think. Most of the days, you'll have petty officers around you. Learn how to make a bed with hospital corners. I know it sounds ridiculous, but several guys got a smod out of our division because they couldn't make their faking rack. Get in whatever kind of shape you can. If you go to boot camp out of shape, you're going to regret it. Knowing the phonetic alphabet will help you in the long run. Speaking from army perspective here. Most, not all, mine wasn't too bad. Recruiters are going to lie or stretch the truth about a lot of things they say. Get everything in writing and talk to actual veterans before you join. It's not nearly as grand as you probably think it is. Most of my time is spent sitting around or doing some BS the higher ups make for us. Keep all paperwork because they can and will lose it. Keep it to prove you earned your awards, which matters for promotions, and the fact that you turned such and such gear back in so they can't charge you. Don't get on the bad side of the cooks, mechanics, supply, or the medics. It's just bad form. Don't date within your unit. I've seen it go bad a couple of times. Go to every special school you can. It looks really good on you. Do more part. Do it before joining to make basic a lot easier. Then keep on doing it, because there are few things that luck better than a 300 on part test to the army. If you plan on going officer, do ROTC, because it's really hard to do OX. Basically you need to be doing at least 315 extended scale just to qualify for it. Mizo came out of OX and was telling us about it. As a lower enlisted, if you have a sheet bag sergeant, make sure you can go to your SSG or another sergeant not directly in your chain 4. When you need something, keep accountability of your stuff, especially during BCT and 8. I wish I knew, before I trained with American soldiers, that their outlook would be so different. They, and we, were officer cadets. They were in the ROTC, so that probably counts for something, but from a British perspective they had zero sense of humor about the military. I'm sure Americans who have served a while develop a strong sense of perspective and irony, but these kids were weird, sort of like extremists. The British Army survives on its dry sense of humor about everything military, and our favorite thing to do was talk about how hilariously shit everything was. Anyone who used army slang gratuitously, especially when we in civilian clothes doing civilian things, was mercilessly teased for being too keen. It's hard to explain, but if you go on about the army too much when you're in the army, people actually find it really irritating and make fun of you for it, for trying to be an action man or a GI Joe or whatever. As I said, I know this might have been because they were ROTC, but then we were OCTs too, so the comparison is relevant. They faking loved the army, they didn't switch off. They were in army mode all the time, because they seemed to think it made them really cool. They could not take a joke at all. Not one of them. I wish I'd known this, because we then had to spend a mirthless month with them jizzing themselves over the Star-Spangled Banner, or whatever. Also, I wish I'd known they were from Bumfuck Nowhere College in Alabama or something, because where we were talking, with a gay colleague, about how ludicrous it was, that the US had only just abolished, don't ask don't tell at the time. And how it was ridiculous, even that the British Army had a ban on gay service personnel until the 90s. These American octs got really mad about them and homosexuals were allowed in the army, because they might look at my pee-pee in the shower. This all strikes me as especially crazy since, reading these posts, it seems you're treated unbelievably more like a human being in the British Army than the US. I think a lot of people in the British Army feel like they are treated relatively well, not like property. Long story short, I wish I'd known, before I served with other nationalities, what their military culture was like. Edit. I suppose you can have a reasonable opinion against openly gay people serving in the military, an opinion I don't happen to agree with, but these guys' angle was literally it's against God and I don't want to shower with gays, because they might look at me. The latter of which, our gay friend replied to with don't flatter yourself, mate, but that was met with a blank uncomprehending expression. Made an account as long-term lurker just to say this. If you are married, or plan on getting married, you will be gone the majority of the time. I'm talking 3/4 of your days, not including exercises or deployments. I'm about to get out, after over 6 years, and have actually only been with my wife for 3 of those years. Also, your spouse will have to move, wherever you get assigned, which happens a lot. All those friends you made and got to know intimately during those deployments and exercises, that community of support your spouse found during those hard lonely nights taking care of real life while you're gone. Well, orders just came down and now you have to move. Time to start all over again. Rinse and repeat. We are still married, and currently physically separated, this time by choice. She's back home finding a home, and finishing her degree/getting a career. Every single married couple we knew, when I first enlisted, are now divorced and or in the process of it. I'm grateful for our fortitude and her amazing strength in enduring these past 6 years, holding me up, and giving me the ability to keep going during those convoys, when you see Humvees or MRAPs blowing up in front of yours, while receiving indirect fire. Seriously, it is really faking hard to know how shitty it is for your spouse back home dealing with the world on their own, and you are helpless in the sense that you cannot be there by their side. Things I've learned. Being in the USAF, schooling both military and college is a must, and take it serious. If you want to make rank and do well, study like you know absolutely nothing, and never get sidetracked. Make a plan and a schedule to prioritize your time or you will fall behind. When you do well, you will get rewarded with TDYs to some pretty cool places depending on what AFSC you do. If you finish your degree in a desirable field, the military would gladly accept your request for OTS. I'm planning to finish my nursing degree and possibly go this route. There is also the option to finish and get out, have military experience, and be able to land a career job that will pay out very handsomely. I've known radar maintenance persons to land 6-figure jobs after their service. Records are vital and will help you in the long run. Make copies of everything and prioritize them in different folders. I have all medical in one, schooling and CDCs in another, enlistment and dependent paperwork in another as well. Store it in a fire safe if you can. I would recommend having one. Networking in the military is very important. Making friends in different AFSCs, bases, MAJCOMs, and even other branches of service will help you out exponentially when you need help. This will also line things up if you ever get out, or if you decide to cross-train into another AFSC. I have options if I choose to leave where people can assist with career opportunities. Always find people that will be there for you. Trust is hard to find in the military and friends can be even harder. I have spent most of my career overseas and have lost so many good people. It's hard to keep a good circle of people around. Supervisors, subordinates, and coworkers are a mixed bag and will sometimes be really difficult to work with. Find people that can help you succeed and make you excel through your time in the military. I have always tried my best to set my airmen up for success and to guide them in the right direction. Some have been struggling to deal with, but I have always told myself that they joined the service for different reasons other than my own. I want them to achieve their goals and not interfere. One of my troops got out and is not an F-16 pilot, and part of that was because I fought for him to only concentrate on college when my chain of command wanted to make him do other things. Almost lost a stripe because of that. Save your money. Make it a goal to save a certain amount each month and open a teaspoon setup when you enter the service and keep a steady flow into the plan. Do not get mixed up with a Star card or other credit cards, but become a club member. Only use the credit service to boost your credit score. Pay off your debt as soon as you can and never fall behind. I've seen too many people get in big trouble because they couldn't pay their bills. Always live within your limit. The military can really mess you up if you can't. I've had the privilege to work with all branches as a firefighter and have loved knowing what they all do and how we interact with each other. Seeing it during Iraq and Afghanistan, it's made me a better person. Never be afraid to ask for help. Never hesitate to help out. Always make the best out of your time and be happy to serve for this country. Sometimes it's hard, but you get to be a part of the 1% of America that served. Edit, stuff and numbers. I'm a military brat speaking for my dad. A soldier slash sailor slash airman slash marine are not only sacrificing time, agency, and risk damage to their body, but they also sacrifice their future lives outside of the military. Some never really come home mentally. Others have to make plans around the body that the service has left them with. Relationships are affected and broken. Dad has had some serious damage to his body doing a mundane job. As a young airman, he had to paint an airplane hangar. All they had was lead paint left over from Vietnam or Korea. The next day he was in sick bay swollen up from a reaction, and he was sick for 30 days. For the rest of his years he'll have tremors and gets worse with time. Nowadays he can't hold anything without shaking it like a martini. The chemical exposure to the solvent is the reason he has Parkinson's disease that gets worse over time. Luckily he is able to draw disability. He has busted his knee playing volleyball to stay fit for service and had it replaced. You get news from home at the worst times. While stationed in Alaska there was a base-wide training exercise and he gets a call from his hired pie confirming Dad's suspicions my mom was seeing another man. Dad's not a jealous person, but he's not blind. Luckily the commander had compassion for him and called their war games to a halt to help him out. Dad's words, he stopped the world for me. Sometimes you will still have to work in spite of that. War doesn't stop for anyone, and the mission will still have to be completed. He was in Desert Shield and got a call telling him that his kids were in foster care because of my stepmom. He had to come back to the States to straighten things out. Acting as a first shirt, he's seen domestic lives that were in shambles. He warned us never to marry into the military because so many of them cheat. Ouch. I have heeded his advice. He has PTSD, and I don't even know why. It might be classified. It could be that he can't put things into words without losing his grip. I'll never get it out of him unless he volunteers. He is not the happy, outgoing, sweet guy I knew from my young years. As I grew up, he became hard, sometimes to the near point of callousness. He hardly went out. Don't get me wrong, he's still a good man in his own way, but he's lost a fair bit of any child spark. If it wasn't taken out in boot, the rest was ground out by life in the service. He may still be functional, but parts of him will never be back. His sense of humor is intact, but the core became anger. He has 5 kids, none of whom he is truly close to, although they all want more of him. I think I understand him best, since I knew him before the service chewed him up and spit him out. My siblings don't think he cares, but in spite of that I see a person who tries to function, can't express his emotions, is afraid of intimacy and cares deeply about the fates of his kids. He'll kill a man who hurts his girls. 3 of us are his, 2 are my step siblings. He'll use every resource he has to be there when we truly need him. He'll make sure we have what we physically need. He's offered me money for school, vehicles, to pay my bills, etc. He may not have what we want, but he will give us what he can. He gave my sister money for a car when she had an accident and helped her with school. In spite of all of it, he said he'd do it again. It was his honor to serve our country. He calls us kids his heroes. He's mine. He gave us pretty good lives, even when parts of it are shit. We were broke, but we never went hungry, naked or unsheltered. I've seen a fair bit of Europe, went to some damn good schools, and met some great people. He may have not been a super dad, but what he had to give, he gave. As a conscript here, I can tell you that hierarchy means everything. You just suffer, and only suffer, being at the bottom of the pyramid, just like any workplace in society, except that you are being restrained by the military law as well. Freedom is also restricted. Commit a crime outside, you get punished twice. You can get into trouble really easily, it's just that ridiculous. Even if you behave yourself and not do anything stupid, you still have the slightest chance of getting charged. Why does it happen? The power and authority you possess is directly linked to your rank you possess. All it takes is just an egoistic, irrational old superior still living in the past to issue you a very unreasonable command and have you reject it, consequently getting you charged on the basis of insubordination. From what I have observed so far, the military is filled with people who can't excel as well or unable to exist in society. And yes, really faked up people do exist in there. I often see people abuse their power by bullying or exploiting others using their rank status. People associate ranks with each individual's capability, but sadly that correlation isn't always true. There will always be people holding positions that they don't deserve. Some only rising to that position with just their decades of loyalty because they can't exist in society and not their merit. It's an organization that relies little on intelligent decisions. Good healthy interpersonal relations with people, be it those above and under you, is key to survival in the military. Stay in shape. For the love of God, stay in shape. It's harder to catch up than it is to keep up. Keep all your records. S1 will lose anything, especially paperwork you need. The only thing they won't lose is their roller chairs and account remote. Take pride in what you do and any awards you get. Be the best sweeping, mopping, connects unloading, double time cadence sign, hurry up and wait I'm motherfucker that stepped into tan, uncomfortable and often wet combat boots. It's lots of hard work, but I've appreciated the hell out of the guys that bust their ass with little to no praise. And an Arkham is sexier than an AAM, but if you've only got one, I would bet it was an EOT award and doesn't have a sweet story behind it. Which reminds me, make some stories. Your grandkids won't want to hear your barracks room had a sweet TV and you played Call of Duty a lot. Go see, insert post's nearest city's nightlife. Have faking fun. Tell them about that time you went out with your neighbor to a club, his friend asked you to punch him, later pissed him off, so that you and his friend ended up staying in his empty old apartment laying on the carpet and keeping warm by burning a log you stole from King Soopers. Make a faking difference sheets gay in the army. Bring something to the table that will not only help you and your guys out, but will benefit your time stuck at work. You'll get some flack for being that guy, but it's that guy they recommend for waiver / promotion / passes. Draw up some training and let Big Sarge know. Don't blow your deployment money. Or any money. Save it. I know this contradicts above slightly, but save as much as you can while enjoying yourself. You don't need $600 worth of bullshit every payday. Take care of your nice things and don't buy bullshit on whimsy. I've got enough bullshit to start my own bullshit Smithsonian. Learn your next job before you get into those boots. I had to learn everything by trial and error instead of taking advice. Take advice. We get it. You're a big boy now. Even have your own car and cell phone. Mom's proud, but your stubbornness is going to chomp down on you as hard when we told you so. Somebody's already been where you are, and odds are they won't want it happening to someone else. If your car's interest rate is higher than your age, don't faking get it. I'd rather someone buy a bike from the PX at 0% interest than to watch Joe's meager paycheck spent on this worthless, obscure piece of shit that they're paying out the ass for 196,000 months. Call your mother. She's worried sick. And visit home. when you get leave. Yeah, home's boring, and nobody can keep up with your borderline alcoholism, but you get to be away from work. Or take a vacation. Go see some stuff. The Tetons are nice this time of year. Don't be an arrogant asshole when you do go home. It'll keep you out of fights with guys who are too scared or too stupid to enlist. Be humble. Finally, for those of you who read this much, stay off the CSM's grass. 1SG will probably see you do it, and your platoon sergeant will catch hell, even if you watch him walk on it all the time. I understand that the military is part of the government, but with that said, there were too much politics involved with everything. Not like government politics, but just the way actions happened. Too many people in charge that have no clue what they are doing. They just do things to get their name heard. People that are higher ranking than E8 and O4 are so far disconnected from reality that their good ideas often hurt everyone under them. There is a lot of pointless nonsense that happens. Oh, you have no legitimate work. Better go to subhuman things like get on your knees and pick weeds out of a parking lot no one ever uses. You're on duty 24/7, so unlike a civilian job, they can keep you however long they want. Plenty of days spent sitting around till 4:30 to 5 PM when all of a sudden 10 trucks need to be moved from point A to point B for no reason at all. Then guess what? When you're finished with that, you have to sit for 2 hours then wait on a formation that'll last 30 minutes. You'll be lectured constantly about certain things, suicide prevention, rap prevention, hazing, etc., but nothing is ever done to punish the people that commit those acts, so nothing ever changes. The overall environment of the leadership is pretty bad. Most people that would normally thrive in the civilian world leave before they get into the upper ranks. Then the upper ranks are full of people that joined the military at the age of 18, so they have absolutely no clue how to treat people like human beings because the military way has been bashed into them for 10 plus years. Unless you're in a unit gearing up to deploy, you're going to spend the majority of your time doing nonsense. Every sort of inspection you can think of, doing retarded work that has no purpose. People will get pickiest about the tiniest things. However, it's not all negative. The social bonds you create can't be compared to anything else. I didn't do a combat deployment on Bagram for 6 months, but I would do anything in the world to be back with those people again. Besides that, I was stationed in Germany, so I had an incredible opportunity to travel. I got to see so many other countries that no one around me can even say they thought about going to. But, as people have already said, those people already have their bachelor degrees, while I'm having to play catch up on life, because I wanted to do something different in life. If you're asking this because you're curious about joining, do your research. I may sound a bit bitter, but I won't try to stop anyone from doing it. There are a lot of positive outcomes and benefits from the military. Just make sure it's the right fit for you. I'm so glad I did not join the Air Force. Having worked with many Army units, and also in a few Air Force units in joint assignments over about 10 years, yes, they live high on the hog by comparison. I see some of them whining about their 90-day deployments to places with movie theaters and many women and 3 beers a day instead of, well, people hitting your fob with rockets and mortars. If not actually shooting at you. There isn't that same organizational pride that comes from sharing a sucky experience. The average civilian, like most airmen, is horrified at the idea of a 5-mile run, or 6 weeks in the field. There's something to that. Also something to completing Bradley gunnery, or rolling through a shoot house for military ops in urban terrain, room clearing training. There's more cool guy shit, but when that starts to get a little old, pride is still there. Seems to apply to Marines and people in certain units to a greater degree. Army is not for everyone, and soldiers endure a lot of stupidity, but Air Force barely plans, constantly complains, sleep with their silly legalistic manuals under their pillow, and just feels too civilian to me as a service. If that is what you want, go for it. Dr. Af lives better, but they are basically civilians for the most part. Depends on what you want your experience to be. The Naval Submarine Force. Don't do it. Especially fast attack submarines. You can expect constant sea time. I would put my time around 75% sea time versus shore time, and that's only because I was in the shipyard for nearly a year and was deployed on another submarine for 6 months. Super long hours, and unless you are a brown noser, a command boy, or a blue falcon, a rat, you will not get recognized for doing a good job. The upside is most submarine rates advance fast. I went from E1 to E5 with no problems, and would have been up for E6 on the next cycle if I did not get out of the Navy. I was also a radioman, and for any sub guys, despite as much love they have for their respective jobs, the best job on the sub is definitely radioman. As for the other jobs, any nook will hate life. I'm talking many guys tapping, and some suicide/attempted suicides. They work the longest hours I've ever seen any human being work without any real benefit other than a slight nuke pay bonus, although they advance really quick. There were guys who were making bar pay as E5s after being on the boat for a few months and only being in the Navy for 3 years, yet it took me almost 4 years to get my E5 pay and bar. A gang, non-nuke mechanics, have the second hardest job due to the sheer workload. TMs come close to A gang workload. After that it varies, but generally the best jobs when it comes to workload are radioman, logistics, LS, supply guys, FDs, fire techs. They control the weapons systems, and then maybe yeoman, paper pushers. The Navy is all about brown nosing. It doesn't matter that I was qualified senior in rate with less than a year and a half on the boat. The awards and EPs would go to other rates, probably deserved. The entire enlistment process, I wanted to be a corpsman. They told me that was unavailable, so then I told them I wanted to be an EOD. They sat me in a room where cell phone use was prohibited, and 5 hours later they come back and tell me they pulled out all the stops and got me an exclusive submarine contract. They told me if I really wanted EOD I can try out for it in boot camp, but I was to sign this 4-year contract with 1 voluntary year for no bonus, but I could get the job I wanted at boot camp. This was complete horseshit. I should have gotten the round 10k bonus based on what the other SECF guys were getting. I do not regret my time. I learned a lot about myself and life, but if you are going subs for whatever reason, make sure you don't end up in Groton or Virginia, because your life will suck. Also, the women around the base are predators who feed off young sailors. I just hit 18 years in the army, all of it aviation. I've been a paratrooper, an operations specialist, a crew chief, Black Hawk mechanic, recruiter, instructor, and led at different levels. Choose a job that will benefit you when you get out. Whether it's 4 years or 20 years, you will get out eventually. The civilian infantry sector is rather small. Do research. I didn't research my first MO's, military occupational specialty, and got duped into an office job. I changed jobs after my first enlistment and love it. Understand that the job you choose will not necessarily be the job you do the most. Grass needs cutting, dishes need washing, barracks cleaned and guarded, etc. Get in shape. Stay in shape. I don't care what your job is, you need to be healthy for all of the garbage workouts you're going to do. The army, and military in general, is a community. It's complete with great people and complete screw-ups. Choose who you associate with wisely. See other comments about education. Get it? If you aren't the college type, go to a trade school. Maybe choose something outside of your job. More opportunities when you get out. See other comments about mental and physical health. I go to mental health for nightmares and anger issues. They are from the military and before the military. It doesn't matter. The care is free. Use it. Most important. War may or may not trigger events for you. For me, being a recruiter and an instructor was way more stressful than any of my deployments. In war, I take care of my soldiers and my aircraft. I expect to be shot at while crewing, and I expect mortars and rockets. What I didn't expect was being belittled by both civilians and my superiors in my peacetime duties. Expect every civilian to have an opinion on you, the military, and the government's role in everything. They expect that you know the reason for the government's every overseas move. Some civilians will hate you for what they believe you represent. Ignore them. Some people will try to put you on a pedestal as a big hero. Ignore them as well. Know what and who you are. These are just a few points I have learned in my time. Yes, I will do my 20 and get out. I joined at 17 and plan on starting a new career at 37. My daily countdown has already begun. My experience with the military has been different from most. I guess the one thing I wish I knew before joining was the difference between FTS, the old TAR, and a reservist. I was working at a corporate hotel chain as a chef and wanted to get an easier access to medical and dental insurance, since paying out of pocket where I was working was eating up $150 of my check every month. My parents had both been former Navy, so I talked to a recruiter and was sent to the processing center to pick a job. I wanted to go reserves because I could keep my job, get the benefits of being military and just see them every month and sometimes a bit longer for training. Person at the processing center goes, "Oh, there's an FTS position. It's basically a reservist." So I signed up for it. Next thing I know I'm getting stationed somewhere, had to call up my hotel and quit, and now 4 years later I'm in Italy. For those curious, there are 3 main types of service for the Navy. Don't know how it differs between branches. Active duty, these guys are our frontliners. They go to ships, deploy, go on missions. These are probably 90% of the people posting at any time. Reservist, 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks in the year for training. These guys are mobilization assets, meaning we can draft them a set of orders and send them somewhere the active duty people need an extra body. Full-time support, FTS, or total active reservist, TAR. We are active duty sailors whose entire purpose is to deal with reservists. We make sure they get trained, write their orders, send them places, make sure they get home, and handle the other reserve stuff. This is the closest to a 9-to-5 military job that exists to my knowledge. Same perks as active duty, but we are usually never going to see a ship, overseas or anything dangerous, unless we fight to get it. We are usually called full-time shore-duty sailors. Former sailor here. There are so many things I wish I had known. A little background. I was a top 20% student at my high school, had a full ride to Tulane, but went into the military due to a sense of duty. I was at first admitted into the Naval Academy, but that was retracted by unknown reasons at the time, and so I was talked into the nuke field by the recruiter. Come to find out, Zatwam owed a favor to a newspaper editor and pulled me out of that position and put the editor's kid in my place. I only found this out years later. So, I go into the nuke field, and it is super obvious I'm not in the right field. I'm a pro at programming and electronics. Even though there's an ED rating, electronics technician, in the nuke field, you do electronics stuff a small fraction of the time. I went to my advisor, told him I'd be a better resource to the Navy in another rating, and he told me that, since I was trying to get out of nuke school, he's terminating any chance I have of getting back into the academy, and that he'll have me scraping paint if I pursue my endeavor. I was like, what the fuck? I found a loophole out eventually, got into avionics technician, and was at the top of my class, and picked my orders in Hawaii. I was so good that I could follow schematics rather than the step-by-step procedures, but this is where I ran into my next trouble. Since I wasn't following a guideline that my superiors could follow, I was threatened with CRB, Chief Review Board. It's a disciplinary thing, even though what I was doing was allowing the officers to meet all of the missions and safely. Long story short, I went all the way up to captain's mast because I knew how to think for myself and was trying to be the best sailor I could be. I didn't get demoted or punished ever, since I had a backing from many of the master chiefs and senior chiefs that knew I was doing what needed to be done, but it was still not a pleasant experience. Many of the people you work with were given a choice of military or jail, while others are in to get their citizenship. Those were some of the greatest guys. At the end of my 6 years, many people said I should stay in and try a different duty station that I had picked a bad apple at the time. I was also given a recommendation for the academy if I still wanted to go, but I was done. I'm proud of serving my country, but they didn't want a quick thinking Boy Scout, they just want yes men. As has been said a few times in this thread, do your research, weigh your options, and make sure you fully commit to something you will at least partially enjoy. I turned down a full ride to the academy at 18 to get married instead. Obviously, I'm not married anymore. I enlisted for 6 years with an SRB of 5.0 after all my training. SRBs went away after 5 years. That was $60,000 I missed by a year. Pursue those interesting assignments. 9 times out of 10, they'll be the best tour of duty you've ever done. The 1 year I did overseas, Coast Guard here, so that's interesting for us. Turned my service into a career, because I loved the job so much. Go to school. Seriously. There are so many means of alternate advancement available to those who work for it. You're a lowly E4. Go to school at least partially on the military's time. Apply for a warrant officer program, or a direct commission program once you complete your degree. I hear O3E pay is nice. No matter what happens, or what they do to you, deal with everyone respectfully, and mindful of your pay grade. There's always a way to voice your opinion, and it's more likely to be heard if you're respectful. Lastly, to harp on it, the government does own you for as long as your enlistment lasts. I'm dealing with a subordinate who didn't realize that until now. This isn't a job you can quit whenever you like. Your opinion has little effect on the needs of the service, but can still have an effect on the climate of your service. The medical tests you have to go through in the Navy. I didn't have the best childhood, and when I was crying and begging to go home during my pap smear, they did it anyway. They sent me to counseling, and most women would gently laugh at my story. Men on the other hand were actually somewhat comforting. I tried masturbation a couple years ago and just started crying and stopped. I've never had such, and I never will. I'll never go to the doctor and I'll always hate corpsemen. I know this won't bother most people at all, but if you know you'll have a bad experience, join a branch that doesn't do this, or have it done before boot with a doctor you trust. The people at boot are not polite. Other advice, don't burn bridges. Some people are assholes from the get-go, but you never know when you'll need those people to help you with something. Edit. The downvotes are about what? Edit 2. P4 day is the worst thing about Navy boot camp. One guy yelled while he was getting a peanut butter shot. It's a thick flu shot put into your guts for anyone who doesn't know, and he was told to suffer in silence by the corpsman. You can fail the corpsman school and still get pushed into the fleet. If you want a taste of the quality we deal with. Edited a second time in case the downvotes were from people not believing me.